Starting.
Hi everybody, I am Debbie Reynolds with Rocky Mountain Lodge, and today I am super excited to share with you how to make cinnamon rolls. Those are some of the things that are just a staple that everybody loves them. And I was just talking to a friend of mine in Germany who say they call them snails, which I think is kind of interesting. But anyway, today we're going to be making a family favorite and friend favorite of my cinnamon rolls. I've been making these for about 30 years, and it took me a while to get them perfected. I can tell just when I touch the dough if it's going to be a good batch of dough or if they're going to be kind of tough. Most of the time nowadays I can get them to be nice and tender and light, and everybody just loves them. And sometimes if I feel the dough and it's not right, I'm just so picky that I'll just pitch it and start over. But you don't have to do that. This recipe you can find in my cookbook, Rocky Mountain Lodge and Cabin's More Favorite Recipes, which you can find at our website at rockymountainlodge.com, and click on the gift shop tab and you can purchase it from there. And if you enter Facebook Cooking, you can take $5 off in the promo code. And you can also find this recipe on the website at rockymountainlodge.com and click on the recipes tab. So you can kind of follow along as we're making it today if you want. But right now I'm going to start with showing you the basics of making cinnamon rolls. They're actually pretty easy. The biggest time that it takes is all the rising that it takes. It takes about 4 hours from start to finish. From the time you start working on it till the time you're eating those rolls is going to be about 4 hours, maybe a little less. But most of that time is rise time. After actual active working that you're going to do is only about 15 to 20 minutes. And so it's really pretty easy. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to need a bowl, which I forgot. All right, let me grab a bowl. What you're going to want to do, what are you filming? I have my wonderful husband here helping me out filming today. Oh, he's showing you all of the artwork on the wall, I think, or is it our dog?
Rudy, he's sleeping.
Our little doggy Rudy. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start out with a bowl. Get a nice big bowl here. You're going to actually need 2 bowls. You want to use a non-metal bowl because the metal will kind of deactivate the yeast sometimes, so don't use a metal bowl if at all possible. All right, so I'm going to set that aside for now. Then what we're going to do is we are going to mix our yeast mixture. So what I have here is 4.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast, which is here. What you do not want to use is rapid rise instant yeast. That's a no-no for these. You want them to take their time rising so they get nice and tender. So you can get yeast like this, or and measure out 4.5 teaspoons, or you use 2 packets of the active dry yeast, not instant. All right, and so we have the 4.5 teaspoons here. I actually like to proof my yeast first because sometimes I'll keep my yeast and I'm not sure if it's good yeast or if it's bad yeast. It's really discouraging when you make bread and they don't rise because you have bad yeast. So what I like to do first is I like to proof my yeast. So what I start doing is I'll take my yeast, I'll add 1/2 teaspoon of sugar to my yeast. I'm not going to do this right now because I actually already have it done. I want to show you what it looks like after I do this. And then I'm also going to add 1/2 teaspoon of flour and mix it up. Then I'm going to set it in a warm place to double, which I have already done over here. And you can see what it will look like. This has actually only been sitting for about 2 or 3 minutes, but it will start to bubble up. And then you know that your yeast is alive and active. And so if your yeast doesn't bubble up and it just stays flat and dreary, actually I'll go ahead and do this so that you can see what it would look like. It's okay if I don't use these. Let's get 1/2 cup of water. And you're going to want warm water. You don't want cold water. You want your water to be about 110 degrees. If your water is too hot, it will kill the yeast. So you don't want it too hot. I usually just use the back of my hand, but if you're not sure what your temperature is when you're first starting out, just go ahead and use a thermometer to measure that temperature. So you can see this is what it'll look like when you first put it there. When you first get it mixed, and you just set it in a warm place to double or to rise. And if your yeast looks like this after about a few minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, it's good yeast. If it just kind of stays like this, the yeast will dissolve, but it doesn't get bubbly and yeast colored like this, then it's not good yeast. So that's a big tip about, very important about making any bread dishes. All right, set that aside. So now in here, in our bowl, I am going to put a half a stick of butter. I'm sorry, a whole stick of butter, which is 4
melted.
Melted, yes. A half a stick or 8 tablespoons of melted butter in our bowl. And then we are going to add a half a cup of sugar to this. And I forgot one thing. Oops. You want to add a half a cup of milk. You want to warm your milk first, so I'm going to warm this really quick while we are doing other stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to warm that milk for about 30 seconds, and then we are going to add 2 beaten eggs to this, and our yeast mixture, which is continuing to still rise as it sits here. And so you'll see it kind of separates, but it gets nice and frothy at the top. So we're going to add that to this. Okay, I'm going to go get that milk. All right, and now we're going to add our milk. So there's all of our wet ingredients. And I'm going to show you this little handy dandy tool right here. This is called a dough whisk. And so a lot of times dough will stick to a wooden spoon or anything when you're doing it. This dough whisk, it really works wonders and doesn't stick. So I know it's metal, but it's not going to be in there for very long. So I'm just going to mix these up until they're blended. And now here I have 4.5 cups of sifted flour. I like to sift my flour because it makes it lighter and airier. And then I have 1 teaspoon of salt. You don't want to add the salt to your yeast mixture directly because it can kill the yeast, but you do want the flavor. So right now, this is 4.5 cups. I am just going to add about half of this right now. To get started, I'm just going to add a bit of this, a little bit at a time, a couple of cups right now. And you're going to get your hands dirty, so just be prepared. It's all worth it. So we're going to add a little bit just to get this started. And now we're going to add the rest of this in there. And the salt. And we're just going to mix this until it becomes a dough. And then we're going to knead it for about, typically we knead it for about 5 to 10 minutes. See how that dough starts to really come together? All right, and then this dough whisk is a great tool for working with dough. And it comes off of there nice and easy, and it doesn't stick to a spoon like it normally would. Okay, so we're done with that. And this. So that's all the ingredients that we're going to have for our cinnamon roll dough. Now I'm just going to knead this for a little bit. I'm just going to turn this out onto here, and we're going to knead it. And so when you're kneading dough, you want to get your hands, I always have a little bit of flour here that's a little dirty. So you're just going to grab it with your fingertips, pull it forward, and then push it back with the heels of your hand. Forward and then back with the heels of your hand. And then you're going to flip it. Keep your work surface floured. Do it again.
Why do you have dirty flour?
Dirty flour. It's actually not dirty. I'm making it dirty by sticking my fingers in there.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. So you bring it forward with your fingers and push it back with the heels of your hands. So this is kneading your dough. And so we're just going to do this for several minutes until your dough gets nice and elastic and tender. And then so you just kind of keep doing that. If it tends to get sticky, just sprinkle a little bit more flour on there. So just back and forth with your fingers and your heels. Right there.
Don't overdo it. Tell them.
Yeah, well, no, you don't want to overdo it, but you do want to do it for a bit. So that's what's going to make that dough nice and elastic. All right, and so that's going to get all those little air bubbles out of there too. But this is what's going to make it nice and tender. So you just want to, typically I'll do this by hand for at least 5 or 10 minutes. Another trick that I'll do is I do have a bread machine, and I'll sometimes just throw all my ingredients in my bread machine, and then I'll turn it on the dough cycle, and I'll just let it do its thing, and then it stays in there for a couple of hours until it's all kneaded and all risen on its first rise. All right, and then also I have a dough hook on my KitchenAid mixer, and I'll sometimes do it on there too. So you can do this by hand. I just wanted to do this by hand in case you don't have any of those fancy ingredients or fancy tools like a bread machine or a KitchenAid mixer with a dough hook, or any kind of mixer with a dough hook. So this is how I did it for years and years until I got fancy tools. All right, and so now you can kind of see that it forms into a ball, a nice ball there. You can see it's kind of elastic, so it'll kind of push back on you when you push your finger in it. It'll kind of pop back, so it's elastic. All right, and then we're going to form it into a ball, and then we're going to take a bowl, and we're going to spray this bowl with some cooking spray, and we're going to take the top of the dough and put it on the shortening there, and then we're going to flip it over so that the grease part is now on top, and then we're going to cover it up. And we're going to put this in a warm place to rise for about an hour and a half until it's doubled in size. And I've got one over here that's ready. So you can kind of see the original size and the doubled size. Oh, that would be my cinnamon roll. Let's see. Let me check these. I actually have the finished product in the oven right here. I'm going to check them and see how they're doing. They need a few more minutes. So I'm just going to set my timer for 5 more minutes. I'm actually having to make 3 batches of cinnamon rolls today just to show you all these different steps. All right, so now that one's going to rise for about an hour and a half. And now that this is what it will look like when it's done. So you can see that it has risen. It's got all these little air bubbles pockets in there from the yeast and from rising. All right, and now I need to make some room. So I'm going to move some of this stuff aside and make a little bit of room. It's fine that the flour's there. I'm going to need that. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch this dough down and get some of those air bubbles out and deflate that. Bring it into a ball. I'm going to sprinkle. This isn't dirty flour. It's clean flour. It's just that once I put my hands in it, I make it dirty. All right. So lots of flour on the counter so they don't stick. Now I'm going to grab this dough and kind of form it into a little bit of a rectangle here and set it here on the counter. For a long time, the houses that we had tile countertops, and I hated that because it'd have all those grooves. So I bought a great big cutting board, or my dad made me a great big cutting board, so that way I could roll these out. Okay, so now we're just going to make this into a rectangle, and we are going to roll this out to a 12 by 18 inch rectangle. And I have a little secret tool. That's my secret weapon. So we're just going to roll these out to help me get these nice and even. So just roll this out like this. And this is my secret tool. I have a yardstick. I have 2 grandkids coming over. Girls, do you want to come over? You know what? And you can help me do one of the steps. Do you want to help me with these? Okay, let's bring this. You have to wash your hands first, okay? This is Hannah and Michaela. You can set those right here. Okay.
Hi, babies.
You girls want to help me with these?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go wash your
you guys
hands.
Come over here and wash your hands.
Wash them dirty hands.
Wash your hands, and then you can help me.
We was in the car. We in the car a lot today.
Oh, they've been in the car a lot today.
Oh,
So here's what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to take my measuring yardstick.
Tina,
And
that's what I got out.
Yes, Michaela had to help me get this. It was stuck today. So I'm just going to even these out with my yardstick. And then I'm going to measure and see how they are. This is about 16 inches by about 10 inches. So I need to make it go a little more this way. You girls can help me do the butter and cinnamon and sugar, huh? Okay, after you wash your hands, dry your hands, and then we'll bring the step stool over.
Okay. I almost Paulo can jump on the counter.
Uh-oh, their dog can jump up on the counter.
that's bad.
They have a Great Pyrenees. He's a big dog. And he's a puppy. He actually jumped up, he actually put his head on the counter and got something off of it here the other day.
I'm done, Annie.
You're done? Did you dry your hands? There's a towel right there. Okay. All right, so let's see how these are. That's about 18 inches by about 13 inches. So I'm just going to tighten it up just a little bit. But now you can see we have this great rectangle. Okay?
I like my hands off.
Good job. Okay, you girls ready to help me now? These girls are actually going to come over next week, and we're going to make cookies next week. 2 different kinds of cookies on our video next week, so tune in with these 2 little girls helping me out. All right, so here what I have is 3 tablespoons of melted butter. Let me find my, here we go.
Next
brush.
next week they'll comb their hair.
They came over a little unexpected to help. Okay, so who wants to do the butter and who wants to do cinnamon sugar?
I want to do the cinnamon.
You want to do the cinnamon?
Yeah.
And you want to do the butter?
I'm do the cinnamon.
The cinnamon? Okay, I tell you what, Hannah, why don't you start, and you girls can both do this. So what I want you to do, Hannah, is just brush this on like that. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Paint it. Just paint the whole thing with butter. All of the edges and everything, all the way. See, you can get your grandkids to help. One of my grandsons, Josiah, I think he was 4 years old when he started helping me make cinnamon rolls. You keep doing this and I'll go check that. And so now Josiah is 12 and he makes cinnamon rolls all by himself now.
Paint it good, cover it good.
Get
the
the
edges.
Spots, Hannah. All right. Okay. All right. Those cinnamon rolls are just about done. By the time we're done with this, those will be done. Okay, how you doing? You want some more help here?
Yeah.
All right. Michaela, do you want to try it? Okay, so here, just take that, and can you paint it on the spots that don't have any?
I miss some.
Yep, that's okay. We'll get it. Okay, see right here? Can you get some here? And right about right here, go like this. Go brush it all the way down. Can you paint that? Yep, you're going to paint it with butter, and that's going to make it taste so yummy. Mandy will finish it up, okay?
Okay.
Good job, girls.
And me and Michaela do the cinnamon.
Yep, you girls can do the cinnamon and sugar mixture.
Michaela, how do you say cinnamon?
Cinnamon.
That was
How
good.
do you say cinnamon?
Cinnamon.
Good job. I thought I heard cinnamon. My little boy, when he was little, one of his last words that I used to call baby words was yellow, and he used to say it lello. And he was my last baby, and I just love that baby talk that those kids get. And I'll just drizzle the rest of that butter on there. Okay. And now, while these girls are sprinkling the cinnamon and sugar on, I'll tell you, this is half a cup of cinnamon or granulated sugar. and 2 teaspoons, 2 heaping teaspoons of cinnamon. Okay, who wants to mix this up?
Me.
Okay, why don't you mix this up, Hannah? Okay, you can mix that gentle.
Hold on to the bowl. That's it.
Yeah.
Good job.
So you mix that slowly so it doesn't splatter everywhere. And so you want to use a good cinnamon. This is my family's favorite cinnamon. It's a Vietnamese cinnamon that I get from Penzeys, although I'm sure you can get it at other places. But it has a little bit more heat to it and a little bit more flavor. My hubby's favorite. And then you can also get, this is another good cinnamon that I'll get, is Saigon cinnamon. I'll get this one from Costco. They just have a little bit more flavor and a little bit more heat. So try to use a good cinnamon if you can, but regular cinnamon is just fine. Okay, is that all mixed up?
Yep.
Okay, so we've got our cinnamon sugar mixture here. All right, so Hannah, why don't you start by sprinkling some cinnamon sugar all over. Just take a little bit.
Like that much?
You can take the whole spoon. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to just sprinkle it everywhere, just like that, okay? So sprinkle it everywhere. Can you sprinkle it everywhere? Okay, and now Michaela, you want to try some? Okay, Michaela, can you sprinkle it everywhere? Just little bits at a time. Let's see. Okay.
Knew that was
Good
going to
job.
happen.
You girls are such great helpers. We're going to spread that out a little bit. And you know what? You girls are going to get to eat some of these cinnamon rolls. Are you so excited about that? Okay, Hannah, do you want to get some over there?
Yeah.
Since I had to make 3 batches of cinnamon rolls today, and they have 10 people in their family, I'm going to bring them over a couple dozen. Good job. Michaela, you want to try some too? Okay, try to get some all over here, okay?
Okay.
Good job. Oh, you girls
Nice.
are so good at this. You guys are going to be the best cinnamon roll makers ever. Do you guys like cinnamon rolls?
Yeah.
Does everybody in your family like them?
Yeah.
Yeah? How many-
Destiny's at the Y.
Destiny's at the Y? Okay, she'll get them when she gets back, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if we're gonna eat them like after we go back.
Or you have to wait a little bit. It'll be too hot.
Yeah, so maybe after dinner, will that be a good dessert? I used to make these at the bed and breakfast inn too.
I do some.
Sure. So my favorite cinnamon rolls are pumpkin cinnamon rolls with caramel frosting, with the caramel icing. And so you want to get a little bit here, Michaela, and let Michaela do the last bit too. Okay, here, Michaela, you want to do the last bit? All right. Wherever there's not. Good job. You girls are the best.
All right, good job.
All right.
All right, get out of here. Go on.
Oh, so silly.
Get out of here.
Stop.
You're done. They're done. Get out.
All right.
Go on. We'll bring it over later, babies.
Okay, thanks, girls.
Good job.
Say, I'll see you next week. We'll make cookies.
I'll see you next week.
Make cookies. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, babies. Bye. Love you. See you later.
Okay, bye, girlies.
Bye.
Okay, so we've got all of our cinnamon sugar on there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to roll it. Let me get these others out of the oven. They're done. All right.
It's a good thing you didn't forget.
Now, so these are what they'll look like right out of the oven. What do y'all think? Look pretty darn good? Okay. I'll set these aside for a minute while we finish these. Okay. So now we are going to roll this dough up tightly. We're going to start at this long edge, and we're just going to roll it up a little bit at a time. And scrape off some of that extra flour, and then we're going to tightly roll these up.
It's like you got to pinch it, huh?
Yep, you want to kind of pinch it or they'll kind of be loose. And so we want it nice and tight. And if some of your dough isn't totally even, like some of it's thicker and some of it's thinner, not to worry, we'll actually have a fix for that a little bit here in another minute. I'll show you what we'll do. So you can see how we have our ends are thin and our middles are thick. So what I like to try to do is I'll spread the thick part out and I'll press in the thin part until we get them about even in thickness. And then I'll take my measuring yardstick here to about 18 inches. You can see that they are, that's in the way, right about, everything's in the way, right about 18 inches there, a little more, so we can just bring some of this in. Okay, so we've got them about right about 18 inches there, just what we want. And then I'm going to take a knife and cut these. Now, if you have plain dental floss, that's another thing that you can use to cut these. I don't actually have plain dental floss. So I'm just going to measure these out. I'll do it on this side so you can see it. So we're about 18 inches here. Get all my stuff out of the way. All right. There's a lot of cleanup after this. So I'm just going to cut this at about 9 inches. That's in half. And then I'm going to go about 4.5 inches, which is here. And so we're going to get 4 pieces here. Same thing here. You don't have to measure it. You can eyeball it. I just like to measure these first 4 cuts. And then I'll just eyeball these into thirds. I'll kind of score it.
And you shouldn't just plunge the knife. You should cut it back
Right.
and forth, right?
Yes. I'll cut it back and forth. You kind of have to saw it. But if you have dental floss, you stick your piece of dental floss underneath and you kind of score them before like this. And so you'll take your dental floss underneath and then you'll just pull it like this and it makes a nice perfect cut. I just have mint flavored dental floss and I just don't want to add mint flavor to my cinnamon rolls. But plain dental floss works fabulously. So I'm just going to cut these here. And then I'm going to take a pan, any 9x13 pan. I used to make these for a coffee shop. Years ago, I used to bake for a coffee shop. And instead of doing 12 in a batch, I would do 9 jumbo ones. And they were pretty big, and they would just fly off the shelves. And so you can see what these look like here. They're nice and rolled. And so now I'm just going to put these in our pan. We're just going to do 4x3. I like to put some of these ends in the middle here. And then the rest I just put wherever. Now I don't have another batch that's risen after this step, but I'll just tell you about it. So now what you would normally do is you would cover this also with saran wrap like we did our dough. And then we'll let them rise for about 30 minutes. And then when they're done rising, you can bake them at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. And then they will come out just like, actually, I need to clean my counter so I can work over here. And you can see this yeast that I made earlier that I kind of forgot about, how nice and big that gets. Good active yeast. It just keeps going because I forgot about it. All right, so I'm just going to clean my counter off here, and then we're going to ice these. I have 2 different ways that I like to ice these. I can either do a plain icing with powdered sugar and milk and vanilla, or you can do cream cheese frosting, which is kind of like what they'll do at some of those cinnamon roll stores.
Hey, you forgot something.
What?
The raisins.
Oh, yes. Okay. I'll tell you about the raisins. So, you can leave the cinnamon rolls plain like I just did them, which I should have put raisins in them for you. Sorry. Or you can add raisins to them or walnuts. Yes, I forgot the raisins.
Just before you roll it up.
Yes, just before you roll it up when it's all flat, after you get it brushed with butter, then cinnamon sugar, you can add some raisins or chopped nuts or anything that you want to them. All right? Yes, I was going to do that for you and I forgot. I get a little distracted. Those girls coming over at just the right time was a great distraction. Okay, so I've got a mess over here. I got a mess everywhere, actually. All right, so frosting. So the cream cheese frosting, I have 4 ounces of cream cheese, which is half a packet of cream cheese, and 2 tablespoons of butter. And then I have 2 cups of powdered sugar. That's what I'll need. And some vanilla, good vanilla, and some milk, which I'll grab out of here. Okay. So this is what we'll use for our cream cheese frosting. And then for our regular icing, we're just going to have, I have a couple cups of powdered sugar here, and then milk and vanilla. So I'm going to do half and half today so you can see what they're both like. All right, let me bring those cinnamon rolls over. I'm going to put them on a towel so I don't burn my counter or crack my counter or crack my pan. All right, so I'm just going to set those over here. So you can drool over these while I'm making the frosting. And another thing I like to do with these before I frost them is you can see that they're nice and big and tall and they're kind of all blended together. In order to have them come out of the pan easier later, I like to cut them first before I frost them. So I'll just go across these 3 lines here and these 2 across here and cut them, and then they'll just come out of your pan easier, and it's a lot easier to follow the lines of the cinnamon rolls before you frost them. And these middle ones are going to be the most tender because there's no edges, but I have a trick to help those edges stay a little softer. These are always, not always, I try to reserve these for my husband. They're his favorite.
That's right.
All right, so now those are ready for me to frost. So let's make our frosting. So I'm going to start with our cream cheese frosting. So I'm just going to mix this vanilla and butter together. A little loud so we can't talk a whole lot right now. We're just going to blend these. And then I'm going to add our powdered sugar. Now typically I like to add that not all at once. And then I'm not really going to measure our vanilla. I usually do about a teaspoon of vanilla. And when it comes to the vanilla and the milk and the liquid, I don't really measure. I just kind of pour it in at this stage. And then a little bit of milk. We don't need too much milk on these because we'll have the cream cheese and the butter. And those need to be softened, by the way. The cream cheese and the butter should be softened. Start it on low, and you're going to have a big poof and a big mess. Might be all over your face. Okay, so you just keep doing this and keep adding as much milk until it gets to be a spreadable consistency. You can measure if you'd like. I never do. So you just want to make it till it's a spreadable consistency, which I think that is. Let's see here. So I'm just going to get my spatula here. And you can kind of see the consistency. You just want it spreadable. If you want it a little thicker, just don't add as much milk. If you want it thinner, add more milk. So now I'm just going to spread some of these cinnamon rolls here on these. I'm just going to do half of these with the cream cheese frosting, and it's going to melt. I like to do it when the cinnamon rolls are still nice and warm because it kind of melts on there. And so I cut this recipe in half for the frosting. If you want frosting for the whole batch, you'll do a whole stick of cream cheese and 4 cups of powdered sugar. This is 2 cups of powdered sugar and a half of cream cheese and 2 tablespoons of butter. Otherwise, you'll need 4 tablespoons of butter. Okay, so there's a little more in here. Don't want to waste any of that. And so what I like to do, I was telling you about the edges, I like to make sure and get all of these down into all of those little nooks and crannies and let them run down the edges.
So you're only doing half cream cheese and half powdered sugar.
This one is, yes, I'm doing half of these with cream cheese frosting, and then this one I'm going to do with the traditional icing, just so that you can see the difference.
So how much ingredients do you need to, do you have to double that?
Yes,
Oh,
and
okay.
on the recipe in my cookbook, it will tell you the full amount. So if you want all of this to be cream cheese frosting, you would do a whole stick of cream cheese and a half a stick of butter. I like cream cheese frosting. My hubby likes regular icing. I did a poll one time on Facebook asking what everybody liked, and it turned out to be about 60% of people liked cream cheese icing and about 40% of people liked traditional icing. Wipe my hands off here. All right, and so now we're going to do our regular icing. So for regular icing, it's just, now again, I cut this in half. So this is 2 cups of powdered sugar. Oh, my daughter's coming over just at the right time. Oh no, she doesn't want to be seen.
What's the matter, Rachel?
I need the trash key.
Oh, they put it
Oh.
in here. They're almost done. Your girls helped me do the butter and cinnamon sugar. Did I
Smells
tell you?
good.
Good. All right. So again here, we are just going to, we're not going to need our mixer for this one. We're just going to put a little bit of vanilla. This is half a batch for half of it. So this is 2 cups of powdered sugar and a little vanilla just to taste, and then some milk. And we're just going to mix it until it's the consistency that we want it to spread. And if you happen to put too much milk in it, just add a little bit more powdered sugar. It really is very forgiving. You really can't mess it up. Just make sure you have enough of the ingredients on hand. Okay. So it's going to need a little more milk. I like these pretty wet because then you can see, like if you look at the picture on my website, that's with just regular icing. And I made it pretty thin so it can kind of drizzle on there and get inside all of the nooks and crannies. You can mix this with a blender too, or not a blender, your mixer if you want. I just don't always want to make more dirty utensils. And I don't want to have to wash those in between. So, here's our icing. You just want to get all those little lumps out. And you can just look at the consistency and make sure it's the consistency that you want. If you want it thicker, less milk or more powdered sugar. And if you want it thinner, just more milk. Pretty flexible. And so then this, I am just going to pour on here. And let it get down all those edges. And it's just going to kind of melt on there. It'll harden as it sets a little bit.
And you can leave them plain, can't you?
You can leave them plain. There's not a whole lot of sugar in the dough, so the rolls don't come out terribly sweet, but they're good enough. There's a little cinnamon sugar in the middle, but no, you don't have to ice them if you don't want to.
Because they'd be good with butter too, right?
They are good with butter, and what I like to do now is, besides eating them, of course, is. So let's see. So we got all those little nooks and crannies, and you let all that icing run down the edges in between all of these. And there are cinnamon rolls, homemade cinnamon rolls that really don't take a lot of your time, just the rise time. So we have regular icing, cream cheese frosting, and those are ready to eat. Now what I'll sometimes do, I'll pull these out so that you can see what they look like. I'll pull a couple out. Get a little plate here. And I'll get a spatula. So when we take one out of here, they are going to be nice and tender. These are still pretty warm. Nice and tender here in the middle, and it's falling because I broke it. And then you can see what they'll look like here, and then I'll take a regular one out as well. But you can see how nice and tender that dough is. I'm gonna get another plate. Because Brian will want that one and I'll want that one. Actually, Brian will want this one. So here comes this one right here. And you can see how nice and tall and flaky they are and tender. And then if you unwrap them, I like to eat them by just unwrapping them. You can see all the cinnamon sugar inside. And they're pretty delicious. Any questions for anybody about making homemade cinnamon rolls? Nope. All right, and so tune in next week and we will be making cookies. I'll be making 2 kinds of cookies with those 2 little cute girls that came over today. And if you want to find this recipe, you can go to our website, RockyMountainLodge.com. Click on the recipes tab and you'll find the recipe there. And you can also purchase our cookbook, which has 500 recipes, including these cinnamon rolls and the pumpkin cinnamon rolls with caramel frosting, my personal favorite. We'll make those this fall. But those recipes are in this cookbook that you can purchase at the gift shop and type in Facebook cooking and you'll get $5 off. Have a great day, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. See you next week. Bye.